All right. Welcome to another narration of mine. Settle in for a moment. This is where the voices I carry meet the version of the truth most people avoid, and where the things we uncover tend to stay with us long after the story ends. Only the brave souls and the fearless ones stay until the end. So, let me just say this up front. I've always had a problem with sleep. I'm not talking about insomnia or nightmares or sleep paralysis, though I've dealt with all of that too. I'm talking about the kind of sleep where you wake up soaked in sweat, your heart pounding, convinced something followed you out of a dream, like it didn't end when you opened your eyes. That kind of sleep. It messed with my head for years, and I guess I just got desperate. Not sleeping properly for so long. It changes you. You start doing stupid things, risky things, like scrolling through deep forums in the middle of the night, or clicking links that don't belong anywhere near the clear web, or ordering something from a guy calling himself Mr. Quiet, who only accepts payment in crypto and sends instructions in broken English. I didn't even think it would work. It was called the Remlink X. The listing said it was a neurosync device that helps people explore lucid dream worlds, unlock mental barriers, confront buried trauma. Sounded like a cheap knockoff of one of those meditation sleep headbands they sell on Instagram. But this thing didn't look cheap. When the box came, it was wrapped in black duct tape, like someone tried to hide what it was. No branding, just a plain, padded box with a small, white device inside, like a smooth pebble, about the size of a baby monitor, with 2 wires you were supposed to stick behind your ears. The instructions were typed in a weird, stuttering format. Must place before sleep. Brain connect. System. Link dream patterns. Do not remove during process. System will end naturally. That was it. Nothing about how it worked. No safety info. Just that. I should have thrown it away. But I didn't. I was already too far gone. The first night I used it, everything felt too real. You know how dreams usually don't have texture? Like when you touch something in a dream, it doesn't really feel like it. This time, I could feel everything. The cold tile under my feet, the peeling paint on the walls, even the wind outside. I was in my childhood home, my old bedroom, exactly how it used to be before we moved when I was 13. Except things were off. The wallpaper was darker. The posters on my walls were melting, literally dripping like wax. And outside my window, the sky wasn't black. It was red. Not bright red, not fire red. A dull, dead red, like dried blood. I tried to wake up. I knew I was dreaming. I tried to scream, to shake myself out of it. But the moment I moved, the lights in the hallway turned on. I wasn't alone. I could hear the creaking floorboards, slow, heavy steps. I don't know how, but I just knew it wasn't human. the sound it made. It was like someone dragging a bag full of wet meat across the hallway. Wet slaps against wood, like skin being pulled. I backed into the closet, but the door wouldn't close all the way. I peeked through the crack. What I saw still makes my stomach turn. It was tall, skin pale, stretched thin, like plastic wrap over bones. Its face, it didn't have one. Just this raw mess of skin where features should have been. Like someone took a blowtorch to it and let it heal wrong. It walked slowly, sniffing the air like a blind animal. And then it smiled. Not with a mouth. It ripped a smile into its face. With its fingers, it ran one hand across its skin, tearing a grin from cheek to cheek, like it was peeling a fruit. Blood ran down its neck. It didn't care. It just kept sniffing. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I think I peed myself in the dream. It walked up to my closet, stood there, waiting. And then it spoke. Not like a voice, but straight into my head, like it was pushing thoughts into my skull. "You're not going to wake up this time," I screamed. I screamed until my throat hurt. But it didn't matter. I didn't wake up. I don't know how long the dream lasted, but it felt like days. Every time I thought I'd escaped it, I'd wake up in another dream. Sometimes in my old school. Except all the windows were boarded up, and the hallways went in circles. Sometimes in a hospital, strapped to a bed, while nurses with no eyes shoved tubes down my throat. Sometimes in an endless parking lot, the sky still that red color, and things crawling under every car. But I never woke up. Not for real. That's when the real horror started. At some point, God knows when, I started aging. In the dreams, I watched myself get older in the mirror. I felt my back stiffen, my knees ache. I saw my hair thin. I lived a life inside that nightmare. It wasn't one long dream. It was years of dreams, back to back, no waking up in between. Just nightmare after nightmare, stitched together into a living hell. And the things in the dreams, they remembered me. Every time, every new nightmare, they'd greet me like an old friend. They'd say my name. They'd laugh at me. Sometimes they'd pull me apart, piece by piece, and I'd wake up in the next dream screaming with all my limbs back, just to be torn apart again. There were others in there too. People. Real people, I think. Some of them were screaming for help. Others just stared at the walls, drooling, their faces hollow, like they'd been there too long. One girl, I still remember her. She had no mouth, just a jagged hole. She kept writing, "Let me die," over and over again, in blood on the walls. When I finally woke up, it wasn't in my bed. It was in a hospital room. Everything was white, sterile, cold. My mom was there, except she was older, wrinkled, tired. She gasped and started crying. And a doctor came in and started checking my vitals, shouting something I couldn't understand. I didn't know what was happening. Then they told me. I'd been in a coma for 10 years. 10 years. I was 26 when I bought the device. I woke up as a 36-year-old man. My face was thinner, my voice deeper. I had lines on my hands. My teeth felt different. I missed a whole decade. Birthdays, deaths. My dad was gone. My sister had kids. My best friend overdosed 2 years ago. My apartment, gone. My job, gone. Everything was gone except the scars in my mind and a world I'd lived in that no one else believed was real. But here's the thing. Even now, awake, I still see them. In reflections, in dreams. Sometimes, even when I blink for too long. They're waiting. Waking up from a coma should have felt like some miracle moment, right? A second chance. But the first thing I felt, before fear, before confusion, was this deep, crawling sickness in my stomach. Like something in me didn't line up with the room around me. Like my body woke up, but something else stayed behind. The doctors kept calling it post-coma delirium, but I knew better. Every time I blinked, even for half a second, the world flickered. Not like a hallucination or a daydream, more like reality glitching for a heartbeat. I'd see a hallway stretched too long, or a nurse standing too still, or shadows that didn't match the light, all gone the second I blinked again. What made it worse was the way everyone acted around me, like they were walking on eggshells, like I was some fragile artifact they didn't want to break. My mom couldn't look at me for more than a few seconds without crying. My sister kept wiping her hands on her clothes, like she felt dirty being in the same room. I overheard them whispering to the nurses one night, thinking I was asleep. He doesn't look like him anymore. He talks different. What if he's not the same person who went under? Nobody said it to my face, but I could feel it. Even the doctor avoided eye contact. They kept asking questions like, "Do you feel present in your body? Do you ever feel detached from your surroundings? Do you feel like someone else is inside your thoughts?" It was like they expected me to say yes. I didn't answer any of it. I was too scared of what I might tell them if I opened my mouth. The first real problem started the second night in the hospital. I couldn't sleep. Every time I started drifting off, I'd jolt awake like someone was shaking me. After hours of trying, I finally drifted off for maybe 10 minutes. And that's when I realized something was wrong. I wasn't dreaming. I was falling. Free falling in total darkness, wind rushing past me. But there was no ground, just endless, empty air under my feet. I felt nothing around me, no landmarks, no sounds, just this endless, sinking feeling that made my stomach twist. Then I heard breathing. not my own. Something was falling with me. Close. Too close. I couldn't see it. Couldn't hear anything except that heavy, slow, deliberate breathing beside me. Each breath felt like it was brushing the side of my face. I tried to wake up. I forced myself to scream. But when I snapped my eyes open, I wasn't in the hospital bed. I was sitting upright in the hospital hallway. Every light was off, except one flickering bulb far down the corridor. The air smelled different, stale, moldy, and the walls were stained, like the place had been abandoned for years. I looked down at my legs, bare feet, hospital gown, an IV stand next to me, but no fluid bag attached, just empty tubes hanging. And the worst part? Someone was standing at the end of the hallway, not moving, just watching. I couldn't see the face, but I knew the shape. I'd seen it too many times in the dream world. Too tall, shoulders too sharp, like bones wrapped in skin that didn't fit right. Every instinct told me not to move, but something inside me, some leftover thing from the nightmares, said if I stayed still, it would reach me before I could breathe again. So I ran, barefoot, dragging the IV tubing, the floor ice cold under me. The halls kept getting narrower, like the walls were squeezing in, and the lights went out behind me one by one. I could hear it following, not running, just this slow, steady step after step that echoed off every wall, getting closer no matter how fast I moved. I turned a corner and slammed face first into something solid. A nurse grabbed my shoulders, shaking me. The lights were back, the hallway clean, people everywhere. I was back in the real hospital, or at least the version of it that didn't look like an abandoned crypt. "Are you sleepwalking?" she asked. I couldn't speak. My voice was gone, my throat raw, like I'd been screaming for hours. Nobody believed what I said happened. They kept blaming trauma, medication, stress responses. But I couldn't let it go. I needed answers. So I asked the one question nobody wanted me to ask. How long was I dreaming? The doctor stopped writing in his chart, didn't even look up. "We don't talk about coma dreams," he said quietly. That phrasing, it felt rehearsed, like he'd been instructed to say it. I pushed. Did I move? Did I talk? Did anything happen while I was under? He finally looked at me, and his eyes were full of something I can only call fear. "You didn't move," he said. Not once, not a twitch, not a word. But he hesitated. "Your brain activity never dropped. Not once in 10 years. It stayed elevated the entire time, like you were active." I felt my chest tighten. Active how? His mouth pressed into a thin line. "Like you were in REM sleep. Non-stop. For a decade." That night, I checked out of the hospital against medical advice. I didn't want to stay in a place where my nightmares felt closer than the walls. My mom begged me to stay. but I couldn't. Every shadow in that room felt like it was breathing. They gave me some clothes, a pair of used shoes, and a cab voucher. I didn't recognize the city skyline anymore. Everything looked bigger. New buildings everywhere. 10 years of life happening without me. When I got to my mom's house, she had a bedroom set up for me, like I was still the same person she remembered. Same old posters, same old blankets. The bed was freshly made, but the air smelled like a room that hadn't been opened in years. I sat on the edge of the mattress, staring at the wall. I didn't notice the window reflection until it moved. I thought it was me at first, just my own reflection. But then it blinked out of sync with me. I didn't blink, but it did. Then it smiled. Not big, not wide, just enough for me to know it recognized me. I didn't sleep the first night back home. I just sat in that old bedroom, staring at the closed blinds like they were going to peel open on their own. I kept telling myself I was just exhausted, disoriented, traumatized. Whatever excuse people kept throwing at me since I woke up. But deep down, I knew the truth. Whatever those dreams were, they didn't stay behind. They followed. Around 2 in the morning, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, steady. My mom's house is small, so you always know who's walking around based on the rhythm. My mom takes these soft, careful steps. My sister walks fast, dragging her feet a little. These footsteps weren't either of them. They were too heavy, too deliberate, like someone was forcing each step into the floor. I sat very still, listening. They stopped right outside my door. The wood creaked. I didn't breathe. For maybe a full minute, nothing happened. Just silence, thick enough to choke on. Then something brushed the other side of the door. Not a knock, not scratching. More like someone running their palm down the wood. Slow, familiar. After everything I'd seen in the nightmares, that sound felt too close to those creatures that used to stalk me. Skin dragging. Touch that wasn't human. I wanted to call out for my mom, but I couldn't. If I made a sound, I felt like whatever was outside would respond. The footsteps eventually moved away. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, my sister came by with her kids. She tried to act normal, asking about how I was feeling, telling me about stuff I'd missed, family events, holidays, news stories. I kept nodding along, but my head was somewhere else. Every mirror in the house made my skin crawl. Every reflective surface felt like a doorway I didn't want to look into. Her youngest kid, a 4-year-old named Owen, wandered into my old room at one point. I followed him, just to keep him safe. The room was quiet, sunlight coming in through the blinds. For a second, I thought I was being paranoid. Then Owen pointed to the corner. "Who's that man?" My stomach dropped. There was nobody there, just an empty corner with boxes stacked up. I looked back at him, trying to play it off. "What man?" He tilted his head, like kids do when they don't understand why adults are pretending. "The tall man," he said, "the one with the stretched face." My blood froze. Kids don't lie about stuff like that. Not that kind of detail. Not that specific shape. I grabbed him gently and took him back to the living room. I didn't tell my sister what he'd said. I didn't want her to look at me like everyone else had been looking at me lately. But from that moment on, I could feel it. Eyes on me in that house, watching from corners, from behind half-closed doors, from reflections that weren't matching my movements. Something was waiting. By the third night, I was losing it. I kept drifting off whether I wanted to or not. Just little moments where my body would shut down. Every time it happened, I felt like something tugged at the back of my mind, pulling me towards sleep, like a hook sinking into soft skin. Around 3 a.m., I passed out sitting against the wall. And I didn't wake up in my room. I woke up standing in the middle of a grocery store. Empty aisles, lights flickering. That same dead red glow bleeding in through the windows. This wasn't a dream from before. This was somewhere new. Somewhere that felt closer to the real world than any nightmare I'd had during those 10 years. The intercom crackled overhead. "Welcome back." I froze. The voice wasn't human. It sounded like someone trying to imitate speech through a broken throat. Every vowel stretched, every consonant scraped. I turned slowly. At the far end of the aisle, something stood between the shelves. Tall, thin. Its head tilted at an angle that didn't make sense. It stepped forward, its joints bending wrong, arms hanging too long. And it knew me. It stepped into the light and opened its mouth. But instead of words, it made this quiet sound. A faint rasp that honestly hurt worse than screaming. Like someone breathing through torn lungs. It lifted one hand and pointed at me. Then the grocery store lights all clicked off at once. Pitch darkness. Something grabbed my wrist. I yanked away and started running, slamming into shelves, knocking down boxes. Something was chasing me, fast. I could hear it scraping against the floor, hear the shelves shaking as it lunged around corners. I tried to force myself awake, clawing at my arms, screaming into the dark. But the dream wouldn't let go. It felt too strong, too anchored, like I wasn't dreaming at all, like something was pulling me deeper, using sleep as a doorway. I tripped on something and fell hard onto the floor. My head hit tile. Pain shot down my spine. I couldn't breathe for a second. The air felt thick, heavy, like I was breathing through wet cloth. I heard it right behind me, not moving, just breathing. Slow, heavy, wet, a hand pressed against my shoulder, cold, too cold. And then someone shook me awake. I shot upright in my real bed, gasping. My mom was next to me, terrified. She said she found me shaking, whispering something she couldn't understand. My pillow was soaked with sweat. My wrists had red marks on them, finger-shaped. The same places the thing grabbed me in the dream. My mom asked if I needed to go back to the hospital. I told her no. But I knew the truth. Sleeping wasn't safe anymore. Awake wasn't safe either. Whatever was happening to me, it wasn't ending. It was getting closer. I tried everything, staying awake with energy drinks, pacing the room, splashing cold water on my face. But my body wasn't built for this. 10 years of dreaming, like my brain ran marathons every night, had left me weak. My limbs trembled from exhaustion. My head felt like it was packed with sand. Every blink got heavier, every second slipping by slower. The nightmares weren't waiting for sleep anymore. They were starting to bleed in around the edges. I saw it first when I went to the bathroom that morning. I pushed open the door, flipped the light on, and for half a second, the reflection in the mirror wasn't mine. It was older, wrinkled, sunken eyes, a face I didn't recognize but somehow knew belonged to me at some point in those 10 dream years. The reflection smiled. I didn't. I backed out so fast, I hit the hallway wall. My mom came running, asking if I'd hurt myself, but I couldn't explain what I'd seen. I didn't want her to think I was breaking down even more than she already assumed. The truth was, I didn't know if I was breaking down or if something was trying to break through. Later that day, I went outside just to get fresh air. The sun felt too bright, like it stabbed at my skull, but the air helped clear my thoughts. The neighborhood was the same but different. Some houses had new roofs. Some people I didn't know walked past me. A decade had left its fingerprints everywhere. I sat on the front steps, rubbing my eyes, trying to stay awake, when I noticed a man across the street. He was just standing there, facing me, not moving. A tall figure in a long coat, head slightly tilted. I assumed he was waiting for a ride, or maybe taking a smoke break. But after 5 minutes, he didn't shift. Not an inch. His posture stayed stiff, arms at his sides. Then I realized something that made my stomach tighten. He was standing in direct sunlight, but there was no shadow behind him. I blinked hard. Maybe I was hallucinating. Maybe I hadn't blinked long enough to see it. I looked again. Still no shadow. And then he lifted his hand, slowly, like whatever was controlling him wasn't used to the movement, and pointed at me, same way the thing did in that grocery store nightmare. I stood up immediately, backing toward the door. My mom called my name from inside. I looked away for a second. Just 1 second. When I looked back, the street was empty. No man, no footsteps, nothing. But the place where he'd stood had a faint imprint on the grass, deep, like someone had been planted there for a long time. That evening, I found something in my room that wasn't there before. A small piece of paper, folded, placed on my pillow. I didn't put it there. My mom didn't go in my room unless she had to. And I hadn't left the house since the morning. The paper was creased, worn like someone had handled it too many times. I opened it carefully. There were 3 words written in shaky handwriting. You were left open. My hands started shaking so hard I dropped the note. Left open? Like a door? Like a wound? Like something unfinished. It felt like someone had been in the room. Maybe watching me. Maybe standing right next to the bed while I was awake and didn't notice. I searched the room. Under the bed. Inside the closet. Behind the curtains. Nothing. But the note felt warm, like someone had held it minutes before I found it. That night, everything escalated. I tried lying on the floor to rest my eyes for a minute. Not sleep, just rest. The house was quiet, lights dim. My mom was watching TV downstairs. Everything felt calm for once. I blinked. One blink. And suddenly, I was standing in a long, narrow hallway that didn't belong in my house. The walls were peeling. The carpet was wet. Somewhere in the distance, I heard muffled crying. The air smelled like old water and metal. I whispered, "No, no, no, not again." The crying got louder. Not a child, not an adult. Something in between. Something wrong. I pressed my hands against my face, trying to force myself awake. But it didn't work this time. The dream, if it even was a dream, felt too physical. My bare feet felt the soaked carpet. My skin prickled from the cold air. I slowly walked forward. The crying stopped suddenly, replaced by breathing. Right around the corner. Slow. Wet. Familiar in the worst way. Then I heard it whisper. Not into my head. Not from the walls. Right behind me. "We know where you sleep now." I spun around. Nothing was there. But the hallway behind me was gone. Only darkness. I backed up slowly, my breath shaking. I knew if I stayed here, it would get me. It always found me. I started running. I didn't know where I was going, but movement felt safer than standing still. The hallway twisted. Doors slammed open and shut as I passed. At one point, a hand reached out of a doorway. Thin fingers, trembling, grabbing at my shirt like someone trapped in there. I yanked away and kept running. Then the floor changed. I wasn't on carpet anymore. I was standing on tile. Hospital tile. But not from the real world. From the red-skied one. I dropped to my knees, shaking. I couldn't do this again. 10 years of nightmares had drained everything out of me. If I got pulled back fully, I didn't think I'd make it out this time. A figure appeared at the end of the hall. Tall, bent, head tilted in that unnatural way. It started walking toward me, slow, certain. No rush. It knew I had nowhere to go. I pressed my back against the wall, eyes squeezing shut, whispering, "Wake up, wake up, wake up." Nothing changed. Its footsteps were getting closer. Then, I felt hands on my shoulders, shaking me hard. I opened my eyes. I was on the floor of my real bedroom, my mom kneeling beside me, crying, begging me to breathe. I felt air rush back into my lungs like I'd been drowning. I sat up fast, almost knocking her over. In the corner of the room, the air looked wrong, like it was rippling, as if something was standing there, but invisible, watching, waiting. I grabbed my mom's arm. "We need to leave," I whispered. She stared at me, terrified. "Why?" Because I wasn't asleep anymore, and it was still here. I didn't tell my mom everything. I couldn't. She already looked at me like she was afraid I'd break apart if she breathed too loud. But I knew we couldn't stay in that house another night. Something had slipped through with me, and every hour it grew bolder. She thought I was having panic attacks. I didn't argue. I just told her we needed to stay at a hotel, somewhere with lights, cameras, people, somewhere the shadows wouldn't feel like they had a heartbeat. She agreed, mostly because she thought a change of environment might help me ground myself. But the second we pulled out of the driveway, I felt something in my chest loosen, like a rope uncoiling. But relief didn't last. During the drive, every reflective surface in the car, the side mirror, the rear view, even the screen on the dashboard, kept showing little flickers of movement. Not shapes, not faces, just movement. Like someone kept stepping into the frame, then slipping out when I blinked. When we reached the hotel, I stayed as close to the lights as possible. I sat with my back against the headboard, staring at the door like I expected it to breathe. My mom fell asleep quickly. The stress wore her down. I tried to stay awake, but every minute felt heavier. My eyes kept stinging. The room kept tilting. I held on to the blanket like it was going to anchor me to this world. And then something happened that made my skin turn cold. I heard whispering. Not a dream whisper, not something distant. It was coming from under the bed, soft, broken, like someone speaking through a ruined throat. "Come back. You didn't finish." I froze. Mom was still asleep, her breathing steady. The whisper slipped across the floor like a draft. "You stayed open. We walked through. Now you must close what you made." I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then something pressed lightly against the underside of the mattress. I scrambled off the bed, nearly falling onto the carpet. I grabbed my mom's arm and shook her awake. She looked around, dazed, confused, half asleep. "What's wrong? What happened?" I didn't answer. Because behind her, right behind her, on the wall, her shadow wasn't alone. There was another shape attached to it, taller, twisted, its head lowered over hers like it was whispering into her ear. But when I looked directly at the wall, nothing was there. Only when I looked away, only in the corner of my vision, only in the place nightmares like to live. I couldn't stay inside. I dragged my mom out of the room, down the hallway, into the lobby. The night clerk stared at us like we were insane. Maybe we were. I didn't care. I needed light, people, noise. We sat in the lobby, my mom trying to talk me down while I kept glancing at every corner. Something kept shifting in the glass doors. Just subtle movements, like someone standing behind me, reflected in the glass, waiting. Eventually, I knew I had to do something. Running wouldn't work. Staying awake wouldn't work. Whatever door the device opened, whatever connection it made, it wasn't going to shut by itself. So I did the stupidest thing I've ever done. I left my mom in the lobby and went back to the hotel room alone. I locked the door behind me and stood in the dark, letting the silence fill the space. My heart felt like it was trying to break out of my chest. My hands were shaking. My mouth was dry. But the room was waiting for me. And so was whatever I brought out of the dream world. I stood in the center of the room. "Okay," I whispered. "If you want me, I'm right here. No more hiding." At first, nothing happened. Then a soft tap sounded from the closet. Another tap. Then breathing. Slow, thick, familiar. My whole body locked up as the closet door creaked open by itself. Darkness spilled out, deeper than the room around it, like a hole ripped into something else. A voice came from inside. 10 years, and you still don't understand." I felt air shift behind me, not wind, presence. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. "Why me?" I whispered. A pause. Then, "You kept waking, even when you shouldn't have. You opened doors the others sealed shut. You walked too deep. You saw too much. You never belonged back there. And now you don't belong here." My throat closed. "Then what do you want?" The voice moved closer. I felt cold against the back of my neck. "We want you to close what you opened. You came back unfinished. You left it raw. You let us follow. If you don't finish it, we finish it for you." My vision blurred with tears. "I don't know how." Silence. Then, sleep. I felt a hand, cold, thin, wrong, press against the middle of my back. The room vanished. I woke up, standing at the edge of a massive, endless plain, under that same dead red sky. Except this time, it wasn't empty. Hundreds of figures stood in the distance, all facing me, all watching, all the creatures that stalked me through those dreams. Every distorted shape, every stretched face, every silent thing that walked wrong. And behind them, a towering doorway, a crack in the sky itself, like reality split open and left a wound. I understood then. This was the place I was trying to escape for 10 years. The doorway I'd crawled out of, the one I'd left open, the one they used to follow me back. I walked toward it, my legs shaking, every instinct screaming to turn back. The creatures didn't move. They just watched, waiting. The closer I got to the doorway, the more the wind cut into me. The air felt sharp, like it was slicing my skin without leaving marks. When I reached the doorway, something inside pulled at me, like gravity, but deeper, like it recognized me. I raised my hand. "Is this what I'm supposed to do?" I whispered. 100 voices, those creatures, spoke in unison. "Yes, close it, or stay." I pressed both hands against the crack. It burned. I felt something inside me tear, not skin. Something worse, something mental, something deep. The doorway dragged inward like it was breathing in reverse. The red sky flickered. The ground shook. The creatures stepped back, shrinking away from the collapsing tear. I pushed harder. My vision dimmed. My ears filled with static. The doorway sealed shut, with a sound like a heartbeat stopping. Everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the hotel room, lying on the floor, alone. The air was still, silent, clean. Nothing watched from the corners. No shadows curled wrong. No breathing in the walls. No presence behind me. For the first time since I woke up from the coma, I felt alone in my own body. My mom burst into the room moments later, crying, hugging me like she thought she'd lost me. I didn't tell her what happened. Some things don't need to be shared. Some things no one would believe anyway. That night, I slept. No dreams, no creatures, just darkness. The kind that rests, the kind that heals. But sometimes, maybe once a week, I'll wake up in the middle of the night and swear I hear something far away. Not close, not here, just faint, like something trapped on the other side of a door I closed, waiting for me to fall asleep again someday. And part of me knows, if I ever start dreaming the red sky again, it won't let me wake up this time.